All right, it is time to work on our picture frame, which I'm super excited to work on. You've got your backing, which came in your kit. Whoops. And then your frame. So we're just gonna be working with the frame right now, and then at the end I'll show how to just secure that backing in a few different options. So for our frame, we are gonna start with a few stitches. I'm gonna grab mine. So we've got our blank template, and we're gonna get started on just our stems and our lazy daisies, just to get our greenery finished. You're gonna use the same technique for every stem and every leaf. For this kit, we actually only end up using a few different stitches. So the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna get your thread onto your needle. If you've watched your getting started video, you should know that you're gonna do a nice large knot in the end. You've got 6 strands that you're threading onto your needle. This pattern uses all 6 strands for the whole pattern, and you can either do 6 strands threaded through with a little tail, or you can do the folded over method where you split your strands into 3 and then thread them and tie the ends together. So it's just a personal choice, to be honest, which you prefer, but this kit is designed for you to be able to use all 6. So we're gonna start, there is no real top or bottom, I guess. Well, there is, but for when we're talking about it right now, I'm just gonna hold it like this, and I'm gonna start, you're gonna follow your color guide, which is gonna help you know where to put what. And I'm just gonna start with some of the stems on my flower, and I'm gonna show you how to do these ones, and then you'll apply the exact same techniques for your back stitch to these ones here. It's just a back stitch, and then for all of the leaves and stems. So I've tied a really nice big knot in the back here. I'm gonna get a little trim so that I don't have any extra thread at the back. And then you want it to be large enough that it doesn't pull through the hole. So then we're gonna go forward 1 stitch, and then we're using a back stitch, but because you're doing this on a piece of wood and not on a piece of fabric where you don't want to go through the same hole twice, we can actually come up through the hole that we were at last, because I can't find the hole though, because it's not a piece of fabric where you're going to strain that hole. Does that make sense? With the stitches being like side by side. So, okay, so you've done your little back stitch. It's just, this isn't the right color for that one. All your stems, you can kind of work your way around, all the way around, just stitching into each, and just, sorry, just doing your back stitch. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble today getting through the right hole. There we go. And just doing a back stitch through all of them. So you'll just work your way around. I suggest working with like 1 color at a time. So right now I'm working with the stems on my little flowers. If you are doing what I'm doing here, where you're jumping from one spot to the other, when you get later, you can tuck up this piece by just doing that, or you can tie off at each one. It doesn't really matter. I just then later went around and secured this to the rest of my stitches to clean it up. I'll show you that kind of towards the end. But yeah, just popping around and doing our stitches for all of these around, all the way around. So I'm gonna finish a few of these, and then I'll work on my lazy daisies, which we can do on the same stems that we've already worked on. Okay, the next step we're gonna do is our lazy daisies. So you've got all of these are gonna be done using a lazy daisy. So you're gonna come up through the hole that you've already got your back stitch on, and then you're gonna hold in one hand the thread. You're gonna go back down that same hole, give it a little tug through, and then as that loop comes, you don't want it to close completely. you're gonna go through the top part of where your leaf is. Oops, I lost my needle. You're gonna go through the top hole where your leaf is, and then we're just gonna give it a gentle tug until it's tight, and then coming back down through the hole at the top on the other side of our loop, so it secures it, anchors it. So we'll do that again. So coming up through the hole and then back down through the same hole and then up through the top hole, looping our thread over top and then pulling it gently till the lazy daisy. You want to basically go until that lazy daisy, the top of the lazy daisy is sitting right at the hole. So you want to be able to kind of see the hole and then pull it through from the other side, anchoring it down. And then you can fluff open these or you can leave them closed. It just depends on what you like the look of better. If you want them to be more like at the round shape of a leaf, you can do that. It's really optional and up to you. And then, what was I going to say? Oh, these, sorry, little moment of pause. These kits are designed for the holes to be able to pass through using the 12 strands, like using the folded over, or not the folded over method. So where you have it with a tail, so essentially you have 12 strands at the eye of your needle. So it is quite thick at the eye of the needle. If you are struggling to pull the needle through when you've got already 3 stitches through there, if you're feeling like, oh, I can't get it through, it's hard, my best suggestion is to start going to the split strands. So we're gonna split it into 3 and then feed 3 strands through your needle, fold it over and tie it at the end. The only reason I say that is because then the thickness at the eye of your needle is gonna be it's gonna be reduced by half. So it'll be easier if you're finding that you're straining to pull this through. It'll be easier to get your needle through sorry, I need to fix that. It'll be easier to get your needle back through this hole, especially you might not notice it at the beginning, but then when you're getting to where there's 3 different stitches through the same hole, you might notice it. But the holes are designed to fit the way that I'm stitching right now, but it definitely is a little tighter. So if it makes it more comfortable for you to not use this way of threading your needle, revert back to the getting started video if you need help with that, to split your strands into 3, thread them through, and then tie the end. So as you can see, like it takes me a second to get a good enough grip to pull it through. So if that is something that is not working for you or you're feeling frustrated by, it will be greatly reduced by splitting the strands. So we have done now our lazy daisies. You're gonna do on all of the parts. So you're gonna follow the color guide and you're gonna do your back stitch and your lazy daisy for all of the parts around here, and then your back stitch for this one here. And then you're actually gonna jump over and you're gonna do your lazy daisies through here. I'm gonna show those to you next because they're all going through the same hole. So I'm just gonna give you a quick tutorial on that. It should be the same. If you're feeling confident with your lazy daisies, you don't need to watch that one, but I will show it quickly for you. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm actually gonna split my strands and I'm gonna do the folded over method for if you're still wondering if you wanna try that. So let's split this into 3 strands. Just basically by taking 3 strands in each hand and then pulling, ideally gently. Mine got a little bit tangled, but it's still coming undone, so I'm working with it. Okay, so we're gonna take our ends, and so now I've threaded my needle through, and then I'm gonna put it to the halfway point on my thread, take my ends, and loop them together. So for these little flowers, they have a large hole. The reason for the large hole is so that you can get your needle through, but like for the multiple lazy daisies that need to go through. But it may be difficult, actually it would be impossible, to get a knot large enough to hold that hole. Plus you'd be in the way of where you're putting your lazy daisy. So we're gonna do what I just did there, where I actually fed my thread underneath of where my leaves are stitched. And then that secures my knot behind those stitches. And then I can go up through the hole where my flowers will be. And then I'm just gonna do my lazy daisies. So I'm just using the same hole every time. I'm coming up through it, then back down, then finding the top of my lazy daisy, looping my lazy daisy in, and then yeah, giving this a good tug until my loop of my daisy is at the top of my hole. And then I'm going to put my needle back down on the other side of that loop and pull. If you're finding this like anchor is going through the hole, it's because you're not pulling your loop tight enough before anchoring it. So it's pulling, the loop is going all the way through. If you're finding that it's getting kind of messed up as you go through it, like then you're likely hitting the strand on the back side that controls the loop. So you wanna go through here and try to make sure that you're not hitting the other right there, that other pink thread that's like at the base right here, if you can see that. If you try to stay over here and not hitting that thread, because if you're snagging that thread, you could be throwing off the rest of the lazy daisy. There's a lot of little factors that can contribute. Definitely pushing your needle through another stitch or thread will definitely contribute. This gets hard because we are all in, like we are working with the same hole multiple times. So you're gonna pull down, and then like I said, you're on the other side and I'm trying to avoid any other thread. And then for this side, right now I'm coming up and I'm trying to avoid as much as possible the other lazy daisies that are in there. So just kind of like going beside, not going directly through strands that are already there, or at least attempting not to. You will have to go through a little bit of it, especially once you get to the 4th and 5th one, because really there's nowhere else for you to put it. And then this last one. So see if I'm coming up, I'm trying to stay as far to the side of where my lazy daisy will be. And then just going back down. And this one, it's definitely would be best and easiest to do the split of 3 strands. Like you're gonna find it much easier to pull your needle through or push your needle through on that last 5th lazy daisy. Okay, so there you have it. That is your 5 little lazy daisies all inside the same hole. And then once you're done, I mean, if you wanted to try to do a little French knot in the center, I guess you could give that a go, but we're gonna work with just the lazy daisies, and it just creates a nice little flower there. So the next step we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you the French knots, and then those are all your stitches for the whole kit. You've got back stitch, lazy daisy, and French knot. You don't have too many stitches for this one, which is really cool. Okay, so the first thing I wanna note before we get too far into French knots is that this is gonna be the direction of if we're looking at top, bottom, and sides. So there are gonna be 2 holes. This one has very little ones, yours will be a little larger. And those holes line up with your French knots on the side here. So we're gonna be doing French knots, but you're actually going to leave these 2 French knots. So when you're looking at this, you wanna look for the direction which has this pattern. So I can't label it from top and bottom for you. So I just am trying to show you in a nice little visual which way is the top and which way is the bottom. And then these 2 holes on the side will anchor it to your back when you're ready to attach and put your picture in. So we'll stick with that after, but we're gonna start. So you can leave those 2 French knots out. You can actually do them well, no, you should leave, but we're leaving them. We're leaving these two right here. Okay. So we're going to do French knots. The same method applies that you're going to just start with a 6 strand of floss. And then these little, I'm using this pink color. It's going to be the color that's used at the end of each of these. And then your darker 38, 58 is for all the French knots throughout, but I'm gonna show just whichever hole for knots just for the example. So again, leaving these two on the outsides open, I'm just going to come up from the back of my wood, and then you don't need 2 hands for this, but it definitely makes it easier if you do. So I lay my hoop down on the table, or another option is getting to the edge of the table and putting a heavy book on one side and then letting the part that you're working on hang over. So you almost have like a hoop stand, but since these don't fit into a traditional hoop stand, that's the best option. I'm just gonna work like at this because I'm on the camera with you and it's easier. So I'm gonna wrap, these holes aren't as big as some of the other ones. So 1, 2, I'm gonna do 3 and I think we should be good. It's gonna depend on how tight you pull the tension, how, and all of those factors as to how many wraps you're gonna need, but I would start with 2 or 3 for this. I think 2 should be good, but I'm gonna work with 3 just in case. So you're gonna wrap, and then once you've wrapped, you put your needle, you're gonna push your needle. I like to use the bottom of the table. It really helps actually, because if you're pushing it on the table, it kind of gives you an anchor. Whereas without the table, if you're hanging off the side, you don't have anywhere to kind of stop your needle so that you can control this, but you'll just have to use both hands, which is what you're doing. So we're gonna pull the knot until it's down at the surface of the wood. Hopefully you can see that. I've kind of pulled this string and it moved my knot all the way down to my wood. And in this case, I have to lift my wood up now. I'm gonna kind of keep my thumb on top of that strand that holds the tension. And then hopefully I haven't pulled that too tight because that's part of it. And then I'm just gonna pull through. I think I pulled that knot too tight while I was showing you everything. That's a big part of how successful you're gonna be in your French knots. If you pull too tight, you're gonna end up having to do what I did, which was yank quite a bit. So let's try that again with a little bit of a more accurate tension. So we're gonna wrap 1, 2, let's do 2. And then we're gonna put our needle down. So mine's hooked really quick here. That's another thing, watch that you're not hooked because it'll also make it harder to do your French knot. So I don't think you guys can really see what I'm doing. I'm putting my needle through the hole again, and then I'm pulling this knot so that it is tight and kind of sitting right at the surface of the wood. So it's right at the surface of the wood. This is when I'm gonna take my needle from the back and I'm gonna pull it through. And then hopefully without it tangling, I can get my knot to the bottom. So I'm gonna try to do this close enough, nice angle for you guys. It's hard when my hands are in the way, I know. Okay, so we're gonna come up. Sometimes I hold my finger. One trick that I do is I hold my finger right where the right where the hole is, where my needle is going through, and I kind of push on the side of it so that as I'm going to grab my needle from the front, it doesn't fall through. Oh, why did I do that? Why did I go through the same hole? Look what I just did. I was trying to show you guys something and I did it. Silly. Okay, so if that makes sense, you're gonna push your finger on that because on fabric, the fabric holds the needle from falling back through. But in a hole, you need to have some kind of tension to hold it from falling through. So that is a handy trick. So I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna wrap 1, 2, and then I'm doing where I push my needle through. And again, this is the same thing. You don't have the fabric holding the needle in place, so somehow you have to hold that needle. So what I do is I've pulled on the knot, and then my needle is staying because I've got the knot wrapped around it. I don't want to pull so tight that the needle is suffocating, and then I pull from the back. Hopefully don't screw it up along the way. Okay. So some of the biggest challenges with this will be, so see I'm holding my finger right there as I pull to grab my needle from the other side. It really only matters for French knots because on any other stitch, well, it does actually probably work for all of them, is to put your finger there. So wrapping 2 times, and then again, I'm pushing my needle through, kind of sliding my knot down, or pulling my knot a little tighter so that it's securing that needle. Push the needle through, grab from the back, and then gently. And when you have the needle at the base of the wood, all the tension is out of it, so it's not unraveling on you. It's staying snug because you've made it snug. So instead of it being loose like this and me trying to pull through, I just give it enough that the knot is now, and then it kind of holds itself actually. And then pulling from the back all the way to the front. Sorry, no, yeah, pulling from the back through to, yeah. Okay, so we are almost done. I hope that that tutorial has helped you. 1, 2, I hope I've given you enough tips and tricks that you can get out there and you can do it. And I'm gonna tell you, you are going to have a lot of moments with French knots where it bugs you, because there already are like stitches through here. You'll be able to hold your knot a little better. 3 stitches. This whole one takes 3 stitches. So there are your French knots. You're just gonna follow the color guide to see where to apply, what color, where, and then we're all good. We're ready to go. We're ready to back and finish our design. Well, I'm not right now, but I'm going to give you a demo. All right, so okay, so now it is time to what we're gonna call finishing our picture frame. So you've got your finished embroidered part, and then you've got your backing. So what we're gonna do is, you've obviously lined this up now. If you are having trouble figuring that out, just look this flower here. Just kind of look at the pattern and line it up. It is a different pattern throughout, so that should help you. And then we're gonna take this, whatever your picture is, and I would highly suggest just taping it on. You could glue it, but I think tape is just more temporary because you will be able to take this off and change the frame. Doing just tape is probably the most temporary, but that's up to you. So we're gonna tape that on. And then the next thing you're gonna do, so I'm gonna keep mine like this. You've got these French knots you have not completed. So we're going to start with your piece of thread. And in this case, I'm just using this green for a demo, but you're gonna be using 3858 unless you've changed colors for your whole thing. And then you'll use whatever color you were using for your French knots, or whatever color you want that knot to be. And I'm gonna use the back of my stitches to secure my knot. Okay, that's pretty important because you want your knot to be on the inside here. And then I'm going to come up through the hole of my French knot, and I'm going to do my 1, 2 wraps, and then I'm gonna come down through that hole, pull my knot to it, okay? And then create, my first French knot, okay? So we've got our first French knot. Now you're going to go through this hole here on the back, and you're just gonna pull that until they're secured together. So it might not look like they're secured very well right now, but don't worry, it's coming. And then you're gonna come over to your other side where your other hole is, and you're gonna go through that hole, and then it's gonna come through the front hole. You might need to maneuver it a little bit to get it there, but it'll come. So then you come through to the front, and then you're gonna be creating your next French knot. 1, 2, 1, 2. And then you're gonna go back down, and it might take you a second to find the right hole to get through both holes, but you're gonna want to. So, and then you wanna make sure that this tension is still correct, and then that this tension on your knot here is still correct. And just as long as everything is pulled nice and tight, we're gonna go through, if I can get my needle through, because I think I pulled too tight. I just pulled up on this a little bit to loosen things, and it did, so. And then make sure I don't create a knot as I'm going through. And then you've created your second French knot, and then you've got this line that holds it together. And then we're just gonna go under, and through. Right there. Do that twice, under and through, to create a little knot here, which then I'm gonna maybe do it just for security purposes. I'm gonna do it one more time. Okay. So now you have your, oops, I'm not in frame. Now you have your back secured to your front. You can use this little part as your hanger, but you also will get one of these in there too. If you prefer this, you can glue that onto the back and then hang it, that's upside down, hang it like this. Another thing that I'll say is if you find it will wiggle like a little bit out of shape there, you could put like a little bit of like glue in there to hold it. When I do, like I didn't mind, I didn't think it was enough to, it stays pretty securely, but of course, like if you're finding that you want, if this isn't staying as tight as you want, but what this tension on here will do is it will, like if you're pulling, this will keep, like create the tension. So hanging it by this is also helpful because it pulls the tension, keeping them tighter together. So the weight of the picture frame on this pulls the tension to keep them tighter together. But I also included this just in case you wanted it for two options, because you could, if you are having trouble with this part and you know you're going to keep this picture in here, you could just hot glue the back to it. But I wanted to create two options, a permanent and a not permanent. So this is the not permanent option with the string at the back. And then the permanent option, you could forego the string and that method of using the French knot and just use the hanger and hot glue everything together. I just don't want to leave you with only one option where you can't get the picture out. So those are the backing for your picture frame, and you should be able to be all ready to display your picture. The one thing about this method is I can actually, like, I don't even have to take it apart to add my picture. I can just lift it up and put a picture, and there's enough tension, hopefully, that it would stay. So you might be able to do that too. And yes, there is your tutorials for your picture frame. And obviously, if you were doing this, you would not have this little piece hanging out. You would have trimmed up all of your back and just made sure that everything was sitting as flat as possible. Like I said before, you could just string that around to secure it. So hopefully you enjoyed making your own little picture frame, and I would love to see your end result. So if you would like, please send me photos or tag me on Instagram because I would love to see them.